golden raspberry. When they say you win this, it goes in all the papers, and papers love to do that. They love to go on the worst thing and the worst and the worst.
A matinee on, I suppose, Wednesday.
Wednesday and
two on Saturday.
2 on Saturday.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
No, I got to tell you something. I think it would have been a lot of work for me.
When stars step onto the stage, every eye in the house is locked on them, waiting for that perfect shine, that flawless image they've built. But sometimes things spin out of control, and those idols stop acting like themselves. One glass of whiskey, one flute of champagne, and suddenly the icons start, acting real weird. The Tonight Show saw plenty of nights like that, especially when black celebrities showed up already buzzing, drunk enough to lose the plot completely. Nobody expects it, but behind all those big, seemingly scripted laughs were some straight-up, what the hell just happened, moments that left the whole crew scrambling. And the 15 stories I'm about to lay out are the wildest, most hammered guests Johnny Carson ever had to deal with. Moments that showed a whole different side of these stars we'd never seen before. 15. Bill Cosby. The king of comedy falls asleep mid-segment, then screams something filthy on live TV. By the late 1970s, Bill Cosby was everywhere. Constant TV appearances, his own sitcom, the whole deal. His career was on fire. Everybody knew and loved the guy, not just for the acting, but for that smooth, charming delivery. In the early 70s, he'd become the face of smart, family-based humor that sneakily roasted real life. The man broke barriers starring in I Spy, the first dramatic show with a black lead. But behind the polished image and the success, Cosby was wrestling with some heavy personal demons that sometimes made him do some seriously odd stuff. One November night in 1970, live from Burbank, California, Cosby stunned the entire studio with his bizarre behavior. Show kicked off at 11:30 p.m. with Johnny Carson at the helm. The vibe was light, full of laughs, with guests like Flip Wilson and Eva Gabor keeping it fun. After Carson's monologue, Cosby came out to do a little stand-up, his classic family life bits delivered in that signature style. But while he was in the middle of a story, Cosby suddenly started cracking up uncontrollably, slurring his words, eyes bulging like he wasn't even in the room anymore. Before anyone could process it, he flopped back on the couch, pretending, or maybe not pretending, to pass out cold, head dropping like a sack of potatoes. The audience and Carson both froze. A couple of seconds later, he bolted upright, cackled like a maniac, and yelled some filthy, half-garbled sex joke about sleeping with his wife that had zero place on network TV at the time. People were stunned. Carson, quick as ever, smoothed it over with charm, calling it part of a tired performer routine. But anybody paying attention knew something was seriously off. Years later, Cosby admitted he'd pounded way too many scotches before airtime to calm his nerves. Those drinks he used to take the edge off had him completely out of control. It wasn't even his first slip-up like that, but it was definitely the most memorable. That night left a permanent stain on his clean-cut image. Even when he tried to clean it up later with carefully worded personal stories, nobody ever forgot the night America's comedy sweetheart lost it on live television. 14. Sammy Davis Jr. When the Rat Pack turned into a full-on tornado on national TV, Sammy Davis Jr. wasn't just a star. He was a living legend in American music and entertainment. The man could sing, dance, act. He was irreplaceable in the Rat Pack alongside Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. The 60s and early 70s were his peak. Sold-out shows, endless adoration, pure charisma. Every appearance felt like an event. But in October 1970, he gave the world a glimpse of the real guy behind all the glitz, and it wasn't pretty. On October 1st, 1970, during the live broadcast celebrating the show's 8th anniversary, still filming in New York before the permanent move to Burbank, Sammy created one of the most infamous moments in TV history. Huge night, Bob Hope, Dean Martin, Charlton Heston, all there. Then Sammy hit the stage and everything went straight to chaos. While talking about his career, he suddenly started dancing, except it wasn't his usual slick moves. He was stumbling all over the couch, swaying like he couldn't keep his balance. He broke into a wobbly, off-key version of the Candyman that sounded painful instead of charming. The low point? He lunged at Johnny Carson, threw his arms around him like they were old drinking buddies, then started pretending to pour invisible drinks from an imaginary glass, turning the desk into an impromptu Rat Pack party. The audience roared, but you could feel the awkwardness thick in the air. Carson stayed cool and cracked a joke to save the segment, but nobody was buying that this was an act. Sammy was legitimately wasted, a lethal mix of martinis and cocaine he'd been knocking back at a Rat Pack party right before the show. He'd pulled stunts like this before, but this time he crossed the line. It was hilarious in a train wreck way, yet it also made people question how professional the guy really was when the cameras were rolling on such a big night. 13. Richard Pryor. Comedy genius punching the air, fighting invisible enemies on live TV. Richard Pryor wasn't just a comedy legend, he was the most rebellious voice entertainment had ever seen. His raw, no-filter style completely changed stand-up forever. He made people howl with laughter while forcing them to think, turning personal pain into brutal honesty. That Nigger's Crazy won a Grammy and shot him into the stratosphere, even though behind the fame, he was battling addiction and serious mental health struggles. December 13, 1975, Pryor came on the show in Burbank to promote that Grammy-winning album. Other guests like John Davidson and Darlene Carr kept the energy high, but the second Pryor walked out. Something felt wrong. He was deep in addiction and reeling from a messy divorce. His head clearly wasn't right. Carson started the interview asking about inspiration. Pryor's answers were all over the place, stuttering, voice shaking, like he couldn't get the words out straight. When the topic turned to his substance struggles, he just stopped, then out of nowhere started throwing punches. At nothing. Swinging wildly toward Carson, shadowboxing the air. The crowd laughed nervously because it was Richard Pryor, but everybody knew this wasn't comedy anymore. Carson, thinking fast, pivoted to music to get things back on track. Not many people realized it at the time, but Pryor was high as hell, cocaine and bourbon he'd used to get in the zone before the show. Paranoia, anxiety, total loss of control. He later wrote openly about that dark period in his autobiography, calling it one of the lowest points of his life. Moments like that didn't just show a guy having a bad night. They laid bare the brutal inner war of one of comedy's greatest minds. 12. Lola Falana. The Las Vegas Queen got permanently banned from The Tonight Show after one crazy night Lola Falana was a blazing star in 1970s entertainment. Drop-dead gorgeous, insanely talented singer, dancer, actress. She owned Vegas, headlining at the Aladdin Hotel with steamy, high-energy shows that packed the house. She had a massive fan base and serious icon status. Then one fateful night in December 1975 changed everything. December 19, 1975, end-of-year live show from Burbank. Lola was there to plug her Aladdin gig. It turned out to be her first and final appearance on The Tonight Show. Unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. Christmas vibe, festive crowd, everything cheerful. Until she walked out and the whole mood flipped. While doing a sexy dance routine on the guest chair, she suddenly scooted right up next to Carson, started stroking his arm way too intimately, and whispered dirty jokes about nights at the Aladdin that made the audience squirm. The camera caught Carson looking straight up uncomfortable. Nobody expected a major star to go there on live network TV. People laughed, but it was that awkward. Did that just happen? Kind of laugh. Turns out right before the show, she'd been at a party with friends, including Wayne Newton, and downed a ton of champagne. What looked like her usual sultry flair was actually full-on drunk over-the-top behavior. After that night, Lola Falana was banned for life from The Tonight Show. To her, it might have felt playful, but it sparked a huge backlash and basically ended her mainstream TV career. From then on, her name wasn't just tied to talent and beauty, it was forever linked to the night she pushed the sexy Vegas act so far, she left a TV legend speechless and got herself blacklisted. 11. Pearl Bailey. The bizarre Our Love Is Here to Stay performance that nobody ever forgot. Pearl Bailey was a true American icon in music and theater. Killer jazz voice, total class, warmth that made you feel like you were sitting on her porch. One of the first black entertainers to get massive mainstream love, she could sing, act, and charm the socks off anybody. Her performances always felt easy, like she was just hanging out with the audience. On September 27, 1965, Season 4 premiere night, Pearl showed up in a super fun episode with heavy hitters like Bob Hope cracking jokes. The show was now live from Los Angeles after the move from New York, and Johnny Carson was still tweaking the format. Duets were blowing up big time. After Carson introduced her and asked for a song, Pearl picked the romantic jazz standard, Our Love Is Here to Stay. Nobody saw what was coming. She started singing, but completely offbeat, swaying in her chair like she couldn't stay upright. The longer it went, the more the song fell apart. Then, out of nowhere, she veered into talking about ghostly love and spirits chasing her. Like what? This was supposed to be a sweet love ballad. The whole studio just looked at each other, clueless how to react. Carson, quick on his feet as always, threw out a joke to bail everybody out before it got too weird, then smoothly took it to commercial so the moment wouldn't spiral further. During the break, they found out Pearl had knocked back a couple of gin fizzes backstage to calm her nerves. Instead, it sent her way off the rails and turned the performance into pure chaos. The woman famous for being warm and cuddly ended up totally unhinged because of a few light drinks. That night, she left the audience, and Johnny, absolutely speechless. It's one of those Tonight Show moments etched in stone forever. 10. Red Foxx, the shocking striptease, meltdown on live television. Red Foxx was one of the all-time great American comedians, known for his raw, no-filter style and never being afraid to get filthy. He was a true pioneer of stand-up comedy, famous for his wild, over-the-top stories that were bold, dirty, and packed with real-life grit. Over decades in the business, Foxx won over audiences by turning the simplest situations into hilarious routines that sometimes pushed way past every boundary. His most iconic role was in the series Sanford and Son, where he played a loud-mouthed, super-energetic old man that made his name synonymous with comedy gold. On May 17, 1973, during a live broadcast from Burbank, Red Foxx showed up on Johnny Carson's show while promoting the huge hit Sanford and Son. The guests that night were singer Helen Reddy and actor David Jansen, and the vibe was fun and relaxed. Foxx, with his wild, no-holds-barred humor and love for dropping F-bombs, had the crowd roaring as usual. But that night, he went way too far. Even longtime fans were stunned. The second he sat down, Foxx started cracking up uncontrollably, laughing so hard he could barely breathe. He launched into filthy stories about Vegas that made the audience and Carson himself squirm. His jokes weren't just edgy, they made the whole room feel awkward and off. Then, out of nowhere, he jumped up, rushed to the front of the stage, and started fake strip dancing, something he did in his club acts all the time, but totally wrong for network TV. He was stumbling around, almost falling off the platform while pretending to peel off clothes. Everything spiraled out of control. Carson, cool as ever, had to signal the crew to cut to commercial early just to save the show. Before airtime, Foxx had knocked back a bunch of whiskey to get in the zone. The booze took over, he lost all sense of where he was, and what followed was completely inappropriate for the setting. Everyone knew Red Foxx for his raunchy, in-your-face comedy, but that night left people shook. The incident became one of the most infamous moments in TV history and had the industry asking whether guys like Foxx needed a tighter leash. 9. B.B. King, legendary, The Thrill Is Gone performance. falls apart when whiskey throws a blues icon. Offbeat B.B. King isn't just a blues legend, he basically made the electric guitar an essential part of 20th century music. With his one-of-a-kind playing style and that deep, warm voice, he inspired millions around the world. His guitar Lucille became an icon, not just for its sound, but for the almost spiritual connection he had with it. Albums like Live at the Regal and There Must Be a Better World Somewhere are still praised for their soul-deep understanding and raw emotion. Nobody expected that a TV appearance on November 12, 1980, would leave a very different mark on his career. When B.B. King walked onto the Johnny Carson show with Lucille in hand, he was set to deliver something unforgettable. He was promoting his new album, There Must Be a Better World Somewhere, alongside guest George Segal, and the mood was upbeat. Everything started perfectly. He picked up the guitar, eased into The Thrill Is Gone with his signature smoothness and that rich voice. Then halfway through, his singing started warping. The timing went completely off. Notes that usually flowed like water turned choppy. His hands were shaking so bad he almost dropped Lucille. The whole audience stared, confused. Sweat poured down his face. He had to stop, wipe his brow, and give an embarrassed little laugh. Johnny Carson, ever the pro, jumped in with, "You're really playing the blues drunk tonight, huh?" Only after the show did people find out B.B. had downed several big whiskeys backstage to get the feeling right. Ironically, those drinks made his hands tremble and threw the whole song out of whack. Stuff like this happens to performers, but for a legend like B.B. King, it was a real shock. He was always the picture of calm mastery. Seeing him struggle was jarring. Still, the way he handled it, wiping the sweat and laughing it off, just made him more human and even more beloved. The slip-up didn't dim his greatness one bit. If anything, it showed how real and humble the man truly was. 8. Della Reese, Gospel Queen, screams, "The Lord just whispered to me." Della Reese was one of America's legendary gospel voices, with a dazzling career that went from stage to television. She wasn't just known for that emotion-filled voice, she brought strength and charm to every acting role too. Singer, actress, talk show host, she won hearts with her music and left a permanent mark on TV and film. On the night of March 3, 1972, Della Reese appeared on The Tonight Show to promote her new gospel album. Sharing the couch were Tony Bennett and actor McLean Stevenson. The atmosphere was light and spiritual, full of uplifting gospel vibes. Reese, always magnetic and passionate on stage, started singing and pouring holy fire into every note. Then suddenly, in the middle of her performance, she couldn't stay steady. She swayed in her chair, hands trembling. The notes went off key, and out of nowhere she yelled, "The Lord just whispered to me right here on this stage." Then she burst into uncontrollable laughter. Every eye in the studio locked on her. She almost knocked her water glass onto Johnny Carson. Carson quickly cracked a joke to snap her back and ease the tension. Like a lot of performers, Della had downed a strong cocktail before going on to calm her nerves. Instead, it made her lose control and turned a religious moment into chaos. The audience was floored. Even though she later explained what happened, that wild moment is still one of the most unforgettable in her career. 7. Lou Rawls, legendary smooth baritone, starts rambling like he's in a daze. Lou Rawls and that silky, deep voice full of soul made him an absolute legend in soul and R&B. Hits like You'll Never Find Another, Love Like Mine, and Love Is a Hurtin' Thing are timeless. He didn't just sing, he owned the stage and melted hearts with every note. One sweltering July night in 1976, on The Tonight Show, Lou Rawls came on to promote his album, All Things in Time, alongside actor Robert Blake. It was brutally hot in California, and backstage was stocked with cold drinks. Rawls started strong, delivering a passionate soul number like only he could. Right after the song, he grabbed what everyone thought was water and chugged it. Turns out it was straight liquor, and he was already way past his limit. Moments later, he launched into a long, rambling story about growing up in Chicago. Details fuzzy, totally delirious, like he didn't know where he was. His words weren't connecting. He seemed lost in some haze between past and present. When he stood up to act it out, he nearly fell and had to grab Johnny Carson to stay upright. The whole studio went from excited to stunned. The cool, collected Lou Rawls everyone knew had vanished. Luckily, Carson smoothly played it off like it was part of the act. Turns out Rawls had been sipping hard liquor all day since noon, first to beat the heat, then to get ready for the show. He overdid it and completely lost his bearings. The awkwardness was real, but it also gave a rare peek into the private struggles of even the smoothest stars when the spotlight's off. 6. Tina Turner, the Queen of Rock, going absolutely wild like she was possessed. Tina Turner isn't just a music legend, she's a straight-up symbol of strength and resilience. After all those brutal years with Ike Turner, Tina rose like a phoenix, rebuilt her career from scratch, and proved she was a true solo powerhouse. Her album Rough was the ultimate comeback statement. With that raw, soul-shaking voice and a stage presence that could set the room on fire, Tina shook the entire music world. On October 18, 1979, fresh out of her violent marriage to Ike, Tina showed up on The Johnny Carson Show to promote her very first solo album, Rough. Everyone expected a deep, emotional interview about overcoming hell, and with Linda Ronstadt also on the couch, the vibe was getting warm and real as Tina opened up about the pain she'd survived. But right when the conversation was wrapping up nicely, Tina suddenly jumped out of her seat like someone flipped a switch. She climbed onto the couch, screamed, "Proud Mary," like a maniac, and started stomping so hard the whole sofa was shaking. Every eye in the studio locked on her in total disbelief. In her frenzy, she almost fell right into Johnny Carson's lap. Johnny instinctively grabbed her shoulders to keep her from eating the floor while the audience lost it laughing. That explosion of energy wasn't just the adrenaline of telling her story. It was also the champagne she'd been knocking back earlier. She'd been celebrating her freedom at a little pre-show gathering with friends, and those bubbles hit her like rocket fuel. In that chaotic, half-embarrassing, half-electrifying moment, Tina's newfound freedom burst out of her louder than any song ever could. 5. Dionne Warwick, the diva who saw demons live on air. Dionne Warwick isn't just a legend, she's pure class and magnetism. With timeless ballads like Walk On By and I Say a Little Prayer, she's stolen millions of hearts. Besides that silky voice and insane emotional depth, Dionne has always been super into the mystical side of life, tarot cards, psychics, the whole deal. On April 21, 1975, she came on the show to promote Then Came You. The mood was chill and cozy, mostly music talk mixed with her favorite topic, the spirit world. Hanging with Peter Falk, everything felt relaxed while she sang and shared her supernatural stories. Then, mid-slow ballad, her voice suddenly went hoarse, like something was choking her. Her eyes glazed over. She looked completely out of it. She stopped, paused, and started telling this bizarre story, dead serious that there are demons singing with me on this stage right now. Her voice sounded drunk dreamy. Her hand holding the water glass was shaking so bad it almost spilled all over her dress and Johnny, sitting next to her. She could barely stay upright in her chair. The whole studio got weirdly uncomfortable. Johnny, sensing things were about to go completely off the rails, forced a big laugh and changed the subject fast to kill the creepy vibe. Turns out Dionne had been sipping champagne backstage nonstop, trying to open her chakras and get inspired. Instead, she got light hallucinations and zero emotional control. Sometimes reaching for spiritual vibes backfires hard. 4. Billy Preston, the alien takeover, live on TV. Billy Preston wasn't just a killer musician, he was literally nicknamed the Fifth Beatle for life. The guy left his mark all over Beatles records with that organ magic. His solo album, The Kids and Me, was a fresh chapter, but the night he came to promote it, Billy gave everyone a moment they'd never forget, for all the wrong reasons. June 5, 1974, Billy rolled in with Anne Murray as the supposed main guest, but the spotlight ended up on him for completely different reasons. The crowd was pumped for a smooth performance. The second his fingers hit the organ keys, everything went wrong. Totally off-key, rhythm all over the place. Then he just shot up from his seat, spinning around like a man possessed, nearly stepping on Johnny's feet. Johnny had to dodge quick. The performance turned into pure chaos. Billy started cracking up at himself with zero explanation. Johnny, trying to save the sinking ship, joked it was an alien concert and somehow calmed the room down. It all happened so fast, nobody knew what hit them. Later, Billy admitted he'd been drinking hard liquor and smoking weed all afternoon in the studio with buddies. He was way too high, turned a live national TV spot into an unforgettable train wreck. 3. Minnie Riperton, sudden coughing fit, and I just saw a UFO. Minnie Riperton had one of the greatest voices in American music history, hitting whistle notes nobody else could touch. Lovin' You was a massive hit that made her a household name. She was vocal perfection personified. September 11, 1975, she was the main guest on The Tonight Show, and everyone was ready to hear those insane high notes in Lovin' You Live. The second she started singing, she suddenly started coughing like crazy, deep, scary coughs like something was stuck in her throat. It went on forever and sounded almost demonic. The whole studio froze. Nobody knew what was happening. After a solid minute of this nightmare, she finally stopped, face bright red, laughing awkwardly. Then she blurted out that she'd just seen a UFO fly through the studio. Yeah, it got weirder. Johnny tried to lighten the mood with a joke, but the vibe was already strange as hell. Truth is, before airtime, Minnie had knocked back some white wine and smoked strong cigarettes to get in the zone. The combo wrecked her throat, triggered the coughing fit, and apparently gave her a mini hallucination. For a split second, she really thought a spaceship zoomed by. 2. Eddie Murphy, 21-year-old comedy tornado, chasing Johnny Carson. Around the set, Eddie Murphy was the hottest young comic in America, blowing up on Saturday Night Live at just 21 with characters nobody had ever seen before. His very first Tonight Show appearance on November 30th, 1982 became instant legend. Chaotic, hilarious legend. The kid hadn't even settled into the chair before he started cackling. Next thing you know, he's doing a screechy old lady voice, then switching to a monster growl, morphing like crazy. Then he jumped up, started circling Johnny like a predator, bouncing around the stage, hunting him. He was talking a mile a minute, slurring, completely uncontrollable. Johnny, loving the talent but needing order, finally yanked him back into the chair. The whole studio was dying laughing, but also kind of stunned. Turns out Eddie had just come from a rap party for 48 archers. A little beer, a little weed, and a 21-year-old with zero filter turned his Tonight Show debut into glorious mayhem. 1. Whitney Houston. Emotional meltdown on her very first Tonight Show. Whitney Houston, the incredible young talent, had just dropped her debut album and was already dominating the charts. That voice, that range, she was taking over the world. April 23, 1985 was her first time on The Tonight Show to sing Saving All My Love for You. Everyone was dying to see the new superstar shine, but when she hit the big climax of the song, something broke. She lost the beat, her powerful voice cracked and went soft, tears welled up. Then she started crying and laughing at the same time. When Johnny gently asked about her family to change the subject, she got even more emotional, barely able to speak, mumbling stuff like, "I love everybody in this room." Johnny just put an arm around her, comforted her, and cut straight to commercial to save the moment. Turns out Whitney had mixed a little white wine with some anti-anxiety meds before the show because first-time nerves on a huge stage were crushing her. All that bottled-up pressure exploded live on air with no warning. It didn't hurt her career one bit. If anything, people loved her even more, seeing the real, vulnerable human behind the perfect voice. There you have it, The wildest, booziest moments ever on The Tonight Show stage. Proof that no matter how big the star, a couple drinks can turn anyone into a glorious hot mess. If you love these stories and want more behind-the-scenes craziness from the biggest names in showbiz, smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe. We've got way more celebrity chaos coming your way.